Hey everyone, welcome to this little mini episode of The Broken Brain. It's been a while since I have had a short episode to do a little bit of housekeeping and update you on a little bit of what's going to be going on with the show. It's been a real long time since I've talked about the show in general, so I was excited to get a chance to do that. There's a lot more material getting released for the show, and that's pretty exciting. I don't want to overwhelm the show with mentions of like the Patreon and things. I drop the link now and again, but it's something I've been meaning to put out there for a while. There's a lot of stuff that may not make it onto the main feed, and so that's going to be available there. There's some questions that have come up, and I talked about them a long time ago and realized I haven't done it for a while. But one of the main questions I get about the show is like, what is it for, and why is it named what it's named? For those of you who don't remember or know or heard my background story, I'm a therapist. I practice in Utah, and I've worked in the mental health industry since 2000. Actually, I got my first job in 1999. That's right, because I remember driving home from a mental hospital where I worked right at the turn of the century, which is fun to call it that, and there was New Year's Eve, and there were fireworks and such going off, and so that was pretty cool. But it was right around that time that I started working as an aide in an inpatient mental hospital and psychiatric care, and did that for a long time and worked in residential treatment and things like that. So I've been very interested in anything psychological for a long time, and The Broken Brain is something that I started in order to showcase kind of the way that psychological workers and therapists, counselors, coaches, those that work as caseworkers or in other aspects of psychiatric care, they have a real specific way of looking at the world, and I kind of wanted to capture that and share that. Since that time, it's kind of morphed into a show that is all about psychology and culture, and it kind of ties in with the name. Some people have asked, well, why do you call it The Broken Brain? Is that something that's referring to our brains being broken? And I'm going to say "are" because some of you heard me talk a little bit about it on the show, that I am neuroatypical, and I don't want the name to come across as a neurotypical reference to people having a broken brain, so to speak. When I say I'm neuroatypical, meaning I have bipolar disorder. And because of that, I have a frame of reference around that somewhat. And the broken brain phrase refers to the idea of one of the things is how we feel. Oftentimes we feel that we don't fit in, and we feel that there's something broken about us. It's not true, though. The other idea behind that is breaking our brain. And I think of that as kind of like blowing our mind, right? We're breaking our brain around the topics. That's why you'll hear me say that sometimes in the outro when I do one, or when I'm talking about subjects for the shows, is that the idea is breaking our brain around something interesting. One of the main focuses that I didn't start with on the show, but the idea is that the world is too exciting and too interesting to give in to boredom. As somebody who has a lot of mood irregularity built into my own condition and who I am, I have a low boredom tolerance, and I think many people do. And even if we don't have that, even if we tolerate a lot of boredom, sometimes it's depressing to wander around in the world and think it's boring. Nowadays, it's even more than that. Not just boring, but it can seem very aggressive, very negative. And so some of the things that I'm trying to bring about is an exposure to things that make our brains just sort of break with interest. We break out of our normalcy, that type of a thing. So those are some of the elements. Plus, it's alliterative because they both start with B, and it's kind of fun. And I'm a believer in fun. I think we can still have fun with those kinds of things. So that's why the name, and that's kind of what the point is. So there are a number of different shows coming up. One of the things that I've noticed lately is that the work of some of those that I've gravitated towards is being done by people that are therapists that are non-psychologists. You'll see that in the recent episodes that there's been some that are therapists, master's level clinicians, psychologists, things like that, medical doctors, psychiatrists. I have a lot of those individuals on. But lately, a lot of the interesting things that I've found have been from researchers, have been from life coaches, consultants, people that are providing services that are not necessarily part of the medical side. Some of them are very much in the medical community, and some are not. And it's been very interesting to see what kinds of things people have been able to utilize, whether they're utilizing the internet, social media, different forms of positive psychology that you see for coaching and things. So that's been a very interesting thing. It hasn't been on purpose. It's just been something that's been happening. So that's kind of where we're at with the show. One of the things that I'm looking to do is reach out and get more involvement from some of you. It's one of the reasons I'm going to be putting out more material, even just here on the free feed. And then there's some things that I'm going to be generating on the Patreon. And you can go to patreon.com/brokenbrain if you want to find out more about that. You can contribute to the show too by going to buymeacoffee.com/brokenbrain. But just here, I'm not going to belabor those points. You can read about those things. But I'm going to be doing some deeper dives into diagnosis so we can understand and hopefully share a little bit more about some of those diagnostic things. I'm a big believer in consumer advocacy and mental health, not only because I'm a consumer, but as a supplier of mental health services as well. I think it's important for us to know more about that. So I'm starting with depression, and you'll either hear a new episode about introductory diagnostic information about depression. You'll either hear that in a few days, or maybe you did. Kind of depends on when I decide to release this in the feed. So a little secret mystery for myself there. You've already figured it out because you've either seen it in the feed or not seen it in the feed. So really wanted to keep this under 10 minutes. But one of the ways you can interact with me and with the show and give suggestions and feedback is on Twitter. I'm over there quite a bit at Break a Brain. There's some community that I'm trying to start on Facebook as well around mental wellness and addiction and trauma recovery. You can go over there. It's individualized inpatient. No, it's not. It's individualized intensive outpatient program. It's a belief in designing your own treatment and taking charge of that. So it's IIOP, or individualized intensive outpatient, on Facebook. I'll put a link to it in the show notes, but you can also just search that on Facebook, or just go to the Broken Brain podcast page. I put links up there to it too. The idea is that you go there and it's just a resource. It's open. It's free. You do have to apply for membership because I want it to be fairly private. So, but building up that community, talking about and sharing resources and podcasts and practices and therapy outlets and just different things. And you can feel free to share things that you're doing too. So I'd love to hear what things you would like to have covered on the show. Coming up, we've got some positive affirmation-based, affirmation might not be the wrong word, but positive psychology-based consulting and life planning. Some of that, more of that kind of stuff is going to be there. Also going to do some episodes about EMDR. Also looking to do some different things, as always, about addiction and trauma. It's actually one of our more popular topics too. We get the most people listening to those things. So, and just culture too, just cultural things that are interesting and, that will hopefully give us some stuff to think about and break our brains around. So hope to engage with some listeners and talk more about things, and we'll be back at you again soon. I'm going to try to drop a little bit of this general information in the feed. It'll be short. It'll be identified so that you can skip it if you want to, or you can listen to it if you want to as well. If you've gotten to this point of 9 minutes and 30 seconds, then you must have wanted to listen to it, I guess. Thanks everybody for listening. Love y'all. Really glad that you're there. And let's go break your brains around something fantastic. And if you find it, let me know. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to the Court and Parts Podcast Network. To listen to more Court and Parts shows, visit courtandarts.com.